What's up, everybody? It's the Common Sense Investor coming at you with another video. And I want you to listen to this short clip by Thomas James. That's going to be talking about payment for order flow, Webull, basically the people that are in Apex, except for public. He adds public. But he's talking about wanting you to switch from your smaller brokers over to Fidelity, or he says public, but he has a reason for saying public. He uses that as an affiliate link. So I'm going to share my screen real quick and we can get started with the lesson. What's up, everybody? It's the Common Sense Investor coming at you with another video. I'm hoping y'all liking these intros that we're getting and spoofing up our channel. But what I want you to look at right now, I got a short clip here from Thomas James of where he's talking about payment for order flow and what needed to be done, that we needed to move from the smaller brokers to the bigger brokers such as Fidelity. So let's take a look at this clip and then we'll discuss the results of it afterwards. All right, so you heard the clip. Move from your smaller brokers over to Fidelity that does not use payment for order flows. But like I showed y'all the other day, here's what happened when you switched. Robinhood, when you got into the play, you were expecting Robinhood to pay you 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, a million a share. When you got into the play, we used these brokers. All right. Then payment for order flow was discovered. And then the I Got You Bro scandal was exposed. And everybody began to flee the smaller brokers and move over to the bigger brokers, such as Morgan Stanley, Fidelity, Charles Schwab, E-Trade. We talked about that. So what happened when you switched brokers? Well, instead of Robinhood having to pay 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, or $1 million a share, or Webull, or anybody else in the smaller broker arena that was using payment for order flow, everything switched over to here. This is where we're at right now, and that'll be the next lesson. If we get these people out of the squeeze safely, then they can focus on these, helping these get out of the squeeze. But when you switched over, Robinhood was able to go onto the open market, buy your shares for around $14 or $15 a share. That was the big push just recently. All right, Robinhood bought your shares on the open market and they sent them to your new broker, and you say, welcome to your new broker. But this right here, this chart that I'm zooming in on, I want you to see this is the AMC shares on Apex. All right. In other words, for those brokers that are in Apex, they had right here 500 million shares was the top right here. So then you're going to figure these are another 10 million. So 510 million shares were on Apex only. This created a problem. How could Apex claim to be holding 500 to 510 million shares of AMC alone? What about your other clearinghouses? Well, that's when the payment for order flow mass exodus began. The rumor of they're using payment for order flow, get out of them now, and it caused this decline. Now, what's happening here is this is the amount of shares that Apex is holding for AMC, tops out around 510 million, but then it slowly starts to decline. What does this mean? It means that once they got rid of their shares of AMC, or their requirement for the shares of AMC, it began to follow a steady decline all the way to here. Now it's roughly 250, maybe 225 million. So basically half. They got rid of their responsibility for half of the AMC shares that was being held in Apex right here between this time and as this falls down to here. Then this is June and FOMO buying kicks in. People started using the smaller brokers again, all right, because they wanted to get in for the June run up. And as they did that, we watch as if it continues to fall. And we see that Apex is no longer responsible. Let's back it up. Try it again. We see that Apex So from this chart, we can see that at some point, Apex was in control of over 500 million AMC shares right here. Okay. And I'd say it was about 510 million right here to the peak. Then payment for order flow got discovered, and all the YouTubers started talking about that and how you needed to switch from the smaller brokers that use payment for order flows, and the shares that Apex was responsible for began to fall. And as you can see, over the course of January, February, March, April, January to May, Apex got off the hook. In other words, they were responsible for 510 million shares of AMC to come up with them shares. And over the course of 5 months, they were able to bleed it down to where they're only responsible for 200 million. All right. In other words, it was about to be exposed, people. How could Apex control every share of AMC? What about our other clearinghouses? So something had to be done, and the PFOF narrative was born. Get out of Apex, get out of these smaller brokers. Basically, they were saying, which means also get out of Apex. And Apex was able to whittle down their share count of AMC to roughly 200 million by May. Then there was a spike up leading into the June run up. People were getting in again, and it caused a spike up. And here we see that they're responsible for 400 million shares of AMC. When the squeeze happened, Apex was responsible for 400 million shares. But what happens? Payment for order flow keeps being discussed on YouTube, and it continues to fall until eventually it gets down for Christmas to roughly, let's see over here. Let's see if I can find it real quick. How long did it take? Mhm. So now we need to see how many people this is. Right here, going across, they're only responsible now for 125 million shares of AMC. When the squeeze happens, there's people that are holding 100 million shares of AMC at this point in Apex. Whereas if you look up here, they were responsible for 510, 512 million shares. In other words, Apex had every share of AMC, and they were about to be exposed. They had to do something. So the payment for order flow scandal happened, and Apex was able to get off the hook at cheaper prices as it fell. There was a spike up. This was in June when they May, when they was getting ready for the June run up. People jumped back in the smaller brokers, but after the run up, everybody started trading back into the bigger brokers, and then they were only now on the hook. As of right now, they're only on the hook. If the squeeze happened, Apex would have to come up with 100 million shares, 125 million shares instead of 500 million shares. So do you understand that when the squeeze happened over on Apex, it would have been 500 million shares. And over here on Citadel, whatever they are holding or supposed to be holding for AMC shares, those have to be accounted for. And over on your other clearinghouses, those have to be accounted for. That was the MOAS people. But what happened was everybody fled to smaller brokers, which took half the shares out of circulation here with Apex. And then after the run up, it finished on out to where they're only responsible if the MOAS happened today. Apex only has to come up with 100 million shares. That's still a lot. That's 25% of the company, or 20% of the company is being held in the Apex. But what about your smaller brokers or other clearinghouses? Everybody's trying to get balanced out. This is what I'm talking about when I'm saying they let the smaller brokers off the hook. They were fixing to have to come up with this many shares. And as people slowly started to transfer, the line goes down. That's how they got out from underneath the squeeze, people. It's not a mystery. Apex was about to have to come up with 500 million shares. What about your other brokers? What about your other little clearinghouses? How many shares are they holding? Nobody knows. That we can't get the numbers on those. But we know that Apex was holding every share of AMC. So whatever other clearinghouses were responsible for, those were extra. So they had to fix that. And the narrative of payment for order flow was released. Don't think that we just figured this shit out, man. They leaked this because they had to get people away from the smaller brokers into the bigger brokers so that we wouldn't vanquish them. And it's brought it down to a manageable level. Now they're getting ready to go with the second strategy against us, which is going to be, how do we get the bigger brokers out from underneath the squeeze? That's what I'm going to be talking about in the next video coming up. Love y'all and be blessed.